Good morning, everyone. Today is Tuesday, May 27th. We are actually recording this morning, just with yesterday being Memorial Day and everything. So we hope that everyone had a safe Memorial Day weekend and that you got to spend some time with loved ones. I will go ahead. We are missing Ashley this week, so I'll go ahead and do my best to live up to her awesome hosting. So we'll go ahead and get started this morning with Trip in the Northeast.
All right, thank y'all very much for having me. And like Brittany said, we're coming off of the holiday break there, so we've been off our game a little bit. And I'd like to apologize for not having my report as buttoned up as I typically do. Over the break, we were potty training my toddler, so it's been a little bit of a hectic few days in the Morgan household. But I guess the thing to note across the Northeast region from an ag side is it's back wet again. We got a good bit of rain last night, this morning, in general over the weekend. We've had a few pop-up showers here and there over the last week. So we were getting to the point where just about everybody was getting the opportunity to get that first round of hay picked up. But we still got some folks that hadn't even got to think about busting off a cutter yet. There's some places in the Northeast region where that water table is running above ground right now. So we're pretty soggy over in this part of the world. And it's going to take a little bit of time to dry out. But looking at the 14-day forecast, most of the days are at least 20% or better on the chance of rain. Over the next 2 weeks, we only have one day that's under 20% chance of rain. So that's putting guys, what is it? End of May right here. It's pushing all the way out to June 10th on the 14-day forecast. So a lot of guys won't have the opportunity to bust off a cutter at least until the middle of June, which is not uncommon. I mean, this happens pretty regularly where we're late getting started on hay season for a lot of our producers, but it stinks. You're sitting there watching guys 20 miles up the road from you be able to successfully get a cut in the hay picked up, and you're sitting there, making squishing noises when you walk across the hay field because it's still soggy wet. Um, One other thing that this rain system brought through over the weekend was it kind of moderated temperatures. It had gotten hot, y'all. We were knocking on triple digits. It was 94, I think, Friday, 95 Friday. So it had done got pretty warm. And I decided to call off work that afternoon and wash my house in the middle of that. And I almost fried like an egg on the concrete out there. But it had gotten hot. This rain forecast kind of moderated temperatures. Once again, looking at the 14-day forecast, the highs are in the mid 80s to the low 90s, which I know it doesn't sound like a lot of difference in 91 and 97, but it's a lot of difference right there. But once again, I'm putting a lot of stock in a 14-day forecast. Y'all know just how reliable 14-day forecasts are in early summertime. So that's subject to change quickly and wildly. It could be a totally different story tomorrow or heck at 10 o'clock when my app updates. So that's just what we're looking at right now with it. On the cattle side, a lot of our guys are busy weaning calves. Some of them are planning to wean right now. Some guys are weaning a little bit early just to take some pressure off the cattle and give them a little bit more time before they start breeding back on them. Some grass started playing out on several of our producers in that transition from our ryegrass season into the summer seasons. There's oftentimes a little bit of a nutritional shortfall that some people kind of fell subject to on that. But a lot of calves getting weaned, and calf crop in general looks just as good as you would expect it to. It's very satisfactory from everything I've seen across the region, but we are starting to have some fly problems. Now, normally in the May, first part of June, we do see an uptick in fly pressure, and we start getting focused and talking about horn flies live. What I'm talking about right now is house flies. And Vince, Lee, and Brittany might tell me that I'm crazy, but I don't think I've ever in my life seen as many house flies in an area as we have around Northeast Louisiana right now. I've seen it in weaning pens. I've seen it in 4-H'er show barns. I've seen it at my house. It is just thick with house flies all over the place. Maybe a storm that we just got this weekend blew some of them out of here and they can go on and go somewhere else, because house flies can be a nuisance and it can lower your average daily gain on your animals. Even though a housefly doesn't bite or suck blood or anything like that, they feed on excess feed around the animal's muzzles and the secretions around their eyes and nasal. So just the constant pressure around that animal's face causes uncomfort and causes the animal to pace and move and burn extra calories trying to get the houseflies off of them. So maybe them things will just go on and go somewhere and we won't have to deal with them anymore. But we'll see after things kind of settle down with this rain front that we just got. guys, that is pretty well all I've got for the Northeast region update. Brittany, I'm going to kick it back to you, ma'am.
Thanks, Trip. And as you can see by my little sweatshirt that I had on this morning, I know I walked out this morning to go check my rain gauge, just as Lee suggested that I do a couple of weeks ago. And I was walking, I was like, man, it's a little chilly. It was right at 70 degrees, I think, this morning. And I'm sure we'll probably warm up a little bit and the humidity will start getting to us. But yeah, it was a nice about 20 degrees cooler or so than what it had been over the weekend. So when I did check my rain gauge at my house this morning, like I said, I'm near the line between Evangeline and St. Landry Parish. I had just under an inch of rain, and most of that came from the weather we got early this morning. I was awoken about 4:30 with an emergency alert for a tornado warning. Luckily, we did not, I haven't heard of any confirmed tornadoes that touched down in our area, but we did have some pretty severe conditions there. And just with that, just want to remind people when you do have that severe weather and strong winds coming through, we still are seeing a lot of trees that have been coming down ever since the drought of 2023. And those are just, it's kind of taken some time. Trees that may have just kind of slowly died. You'll see with that wind, it doesn't take too much to bring those down. So if you can, make sure and get out there and go and just kind of, run down and check your fence line and whatnot. Make sure you haven't had anything fall. I know when I did walk out this morning, my neighbor who's got, his cattle right behind my house, I saw two calves running on the other side of the fence. And then I was kind of confused. I said, why are all of the cows are looking in the same direction away, and I was like, that's weird. So the calves, and I watched them, they ran all the way up and down the fence. The ones in the fence were, running, trying to figure it out, and then they found their way back in. So I know that they'll get that patched up. But yeah, just want to be on the lookout for any fallen trees or anything on your fences as well. In our area, I did see quite a bit people that could bale hay. We were fairly dry, I would say, toward the end of last week. And we had pretty good conditions there to start to get, that first round of hay baled. So I saw that probably, Wednesday, Thursday. I know I had a lot of people that were doing that. So hopefully they got all that put up before that weather that we had come through. We had a little bit of rain in the afternoon yesterday come through just pretty quick. And then, of course, that severe weather that we got this morning. So last Thursday, I had held a beef cattle producer meeting at Dominique's Stockyard in Opelousas. I just wanted to thank everyone who, my speakers that were there, Mike Dominique at Dominique's Stockyard for allowing us to have the meeting there, and also just all the producers that came. We had really good representation from Louisiana Cattlemen's. I had several board members that were there in attendance as well, and got really good feedback. We had just over 50 people that came to that meeting, and I was just blown away by the support and people that showed up for that. So thank y'all very much for attending that. And of course we will, I'll kind of go through my evaluations and whatnot and see what we can get done in the future for another event. So that's about all I have for right now. I will go ahead and turn it over to Vince.
Thank you, Brittany, and congratulations on having a good turnout for your meeting. It looked like it was well attended. I was not able to attend due to a conflict that I had, but congratulations on that. Yeah, like Tripp alluded to, maybe a 20-mile distance down the road from, from making decisions or being able to do things or not being able to do things. I'm less than 20 miles from Brittany, where she lives, to where I live, and I had nearly 2 inches of rain from yesterday's shower. I guess a thunderstorm coming through, and this morning's event. So that makes a difference in what can happen or what's not going to happen. Yeah, we did get dry towards the end of or early part of the prior week, the week of the 12th through the 16th. And our crop producers were able to get back in the fields and do some work and get some soybeans planted. We're a pretty large soybean growing area, especially in St. Landry Parish. And but unfortunately, we had some people that cut hay on Saturday or Friday and Saturday and tried to bale on Sunday, and it got wet. So it just depends on where you're at. There's a lot of people who have not touched, done anything as far as managing their hay fields at this point. They're overgrown, they're rank with weeds, and very little management has gone into our hay production at this point. And as Tripp alluded to, we're going to be mid-June before any of that happens, at least any cleanup cutting, so to speak. Some were fortunate enough to be able to get in and chop those fields and maybe make an application of herbicide and start to put some fertilizer out. I did see some of that going on, and just had a few run-ins with folks at the feed store and local hardware store and coffee shops, and just concerned that they hadn't been able to do anything yet. So it's gonna time and environment's going to allow us to do what we can do, and we're going to have to just work on it as we can. So we often get an early ryegrass cutting sometime middle to the end of May, which those who were able to get some of it done, as I mentioned previously, kudos to them. But some of that is low quality, late maturing, or it was mature and dried down, and with a little Bermuda and Bahia maybe in it, that may give some palatability, but it's going to be a tough road to hoe. Like Tripp alluded to, the horn flies or fly populations are kicking up. Not only the horn flies, but the house flies and stable flies. With the wet conditions around staging areas, the environmental conditions are in order. It's gonna, your old hay stacks that you fed hay this past winter feeding period, bunch those up. If you can burn them off, burn them off. But windrow it if you would, dry it out, and try to distribute that over your pastures if you got some kind of means of spreading it out, because that's going to be your hot spots for your fly population. So be aware of that, and try to take caution of that. We're probably midway, and Lee can probably allude to it, midway of our breeding season for our spring breeding for spring calving next year. Keep an eye on those bulls. We always talk about the bulls, and I have a situation, only one herd bull for a particular group of cattle that I have, and he's got swollen testicles as of yesterday morning. So I don't know what occurred there. Either got snake bit or stepped on, but that could be a difference of a $6,000 or $8,000 decision here in the short run for the next 30 days. So things can get pretty costly as we move along, and be cost conscious of what things are costing. Calf market is still extremely hot, and I know Leo will cover that. People are very excited about what these fall born calves are bringing at the stockyard right now, or whatever their marketing means may be. So spend that money wisely. We always ask people to make good business decisions and not overspend, especially on equipment, and take care of those necessary repairs, but not necessarily on to overspend on new equipment purchases, because that can be with you in the event that we have a downturn in the markets where we're not as what we consider to be profitable as we are today. We can get hung with some high notes and some high expenses on equipment down the road. So just be cost wise, cost conscious, and about spending. We want to make sure that we take care of our business, and we don't want to end the year with too much money on the books, if you would, but be a smart financial decision maker when it comes to making purchases. And if you got to reinvest in the cow herd, it's probably a time to do it. I know there's a number of cattle people that are just standoffish with today's prices at some of these replacement cattle, young bred cows, in the $3,000 to $4,000 range. And but I had that question recently. It's all relative. Whether we back 8 or 10 years ago you paid $1,200-$1,500 for one of those particular animals, and now you're having to give that $3,200 to $3,800, maybe even $4,000. But look back at your calf crop and what those sales receipts are bringing. It's all relative. So there are some 4 and 5 weight calves that are bringing near $2,000 right now. So you sell 4 or 5 of those calves, you can pay for a bull. You sell 3 of those calves, you can pay for a cow. So just be aware of your expenditures, and not overspend. But at some point in time, we all got to put replacements in our herd and keep it going. So that's about all I have right now. And as far as fertilizing hay fields, that opportunity is going to be upon us before we know it. hopefully we get a dry period in June that we can get some of that done. So that's all I have right now.
Okay, thanks, Vince. And we'll go ahead and turn it over to Lee to wrap us up.
Well, thank you, Brittany. Good morning, everyone. Glad to be with you all today. Had a great Memorial Day around our house. Spent time with some family and friends, and had the opportunity to grill some beef burgers. And well, boy, what a great thing that is to be able to, and we able to get out there and enjoy the product we spent a lot of time producing. And the weather didn't cooperate as well as we'd like to, but we snuck some grilling in between the rains. It had gotten a little dry in Northwest Louisiana, if I wanted to be honest, um, in parts of Northwest Louisiana before this rain. It was very beneficial to get it. I know some folks, like Tripp was saying, it's kind of got them held back. I know that some low-lying areas along the upper Red River Valley, there were some flooding issues. Um, and just enjoy the rains while we can get it. There's nothing you can do about it. Just deal with it, I guess. And I know that's kind of a harsh way to look at it, but before too long, we'll be hollering, looking for a little bit of rain and everything. It's very frustrating on the first cutting of hay. I know for a lot of folks. We had that week and a half of dry period about almost a month ago now, that a lot of folks were able to sneak that first cutting out in Northwest Louisiana, and those that weren't have struggled since then as far as that goes. I talked to a producer the other day that cut some hay and it got rained on about 7 or 8 times. And he told me it was the cleanest hay in Louisiana. He was going to bail it. There's no chance of any dirt in that hay because it had been washed thoroughly. But anyway, we know that at some point you kind of have to do a balancing act on this first cutting, especially when you got ryegrass, these other volunteer cool season forages in the mix, and you got to kind of weigh the fact that the quality is rapidly diminishing on those forages. Do we want to just go on and get it off of there no matter what the weather forecast says, as long as we can stand a tractor up in the field to cut it and bale it, or whatnot? So kind of getting into a time where we could see some detriment to our warm season forages from those leaving those cool seasons off. You leave too much clover, too much ryegrass on these warm season perennials, and it'll really devastate your stand there. Anyway, what a great report from Tripp and Brittany and Vince. I tell you what, I took notes from each one of them. I could talk for an hour or two on each one, especially some of the economic stuff Vince said, but I'll leave that off as far as that goes. He did a great job succinctly putting several concepts on that. Producers in my part of the world are a little concerned on the rise in fertilizer prices. It seems like fertilizer is inching up a little bit as to be expected this time of year, of course, but that's on several minds. I've talked to several producers that have stated got some concerns from that the flies. Tripp mentioned the house flies. There's some horn fly activity, quite a bit of horn fly activity out there right now. There's also stable flies, still seeing some effects from stable flies. So it's been pretty tough here in the last couple of weeks as far as flies go on cattle and all classes of livestock as that goes. Vince, boy, I tell you what, I could pick out several things from his segment that I want to touch on, but I wrote one down just to highlight. And that's the fact that a lot of us have fallen into this trap over the last few years, between drought and high killing cow markets, high calf markets for one reason or another. We've let some of these herds dwindle down a little bit as far as number of cows. When you can sell these high killing cows, we preached over a year now. In advance, we've been preaching about high killing cow prices well over a year, in fact, and about the fact to get rid of those unproductive old cows, and a lot of y'all have done just that. And so whenever you take that out of the equation, some of folks hadn't been saving as many heifers because these calves been worth a pile of money, and you throw drought into the mix amongst all of it, and you've got smaller herds, frankly, folks, and folks staring down the barrel of what to do about increasing their herds? Do they want to keep some of these high dollar heifer calves? Do they want to pay some of these prices that Vince was talking about on these replacement cows? Folks, there's no easy answer. I will say that, and this is just a personal choice. I could probably be argued about it, but if I was given the choice between buying a high dollar piece of equipment that's going to rapidly depreciate or investing in some cattle where I hope to get some money back out of it, I believe I would choose on the cattle side. But that's just me. The other thing that's different this time around from the last time we were at a high on a market cycle is the interest rates, folks. These interest rates are dangerous on some of this high dollar farm equipment. You really get yourself in a bind on that, folks. So study your lesson pretty hard on that. I don't need to tell y'all that. As far as the cattle markets go, we've got the report ready and everything. I will say this is one of those weeks where I wish we had more detail on markets. I wish that almost that we could go week to week on this market data, but we can't do that because we've essentially got two markets. The week before last was very strong, and last week was too. But we started to see just a little bit of instability in the markets beginning last week, and it carried over into some instability in futures, some unsettled future markets, some big drops in future markets. They made back some of it later on, but there's just a lot to talk about in the cattle markets, folks. We've got this ban on Mexican imported cattle still in effect, and we continue to hear more about the screwworm and efforts to fight, not let that get into our nation's cattle herd. So that's a very important concept. There's a ton of trade news and tariff news, and this, frankly, is quite a bit to cover. But I'm going to dive deep into what happened and give y'all our market report as far as last 2 weeks goes. And I feel like I've overstate this sometimes, but I do want to remind you all that this isn't a graded market report, folks. We don't have folks sitting at these sale barns and looking and saying, oh, these are the number one steers, these are large frame number ones, or et cetera, and so forth. So this is self-reported numbers. And frankly, sometimes I know we get them wrong, but whenever we're talking about numbers at sale barns, whenever these sale barns are handling smaller amounts of cattle, sometimes it can skew the market data, And Vince also was stating what these fall calves are bringing. Boy, we're seeing just a rush out of the country on these fall calves. A lot of producers that ordinarily would wean and sell a 550 to 600 pound calf and wouldn't be happy are pulling some 450 weights out of their herd and are happy with what they're bringing. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens once we roll into summer officially, once we get into true summer and move it on to midsummer. I'll quit rambling here and jump right into the market report. So this market report covers the time period of May the 12th through May the 26th. These are the averages of prices on 500 to 600 pound steers. The average of the price paid was $2.87 to $3.61 per pound. That's a 1.72% increase over the previous 2 weeks. On 5 to 6 weight heifers, $2.52 per pound to $3.45. That's a 0.33% decrease, and there's no reason for that, folks. I think you may be dealing with some quality issues there. I don't have an explanation for it, but I wouldn't read too much into that one. On cull cows, average price of paid was $1.23 per pound to $1.65 per pound, 3.59% increase. Remember, it's grilling season, folks. We need those cull cows, those killing bulls for that. On cull bulls, $1.50 to $1.95 per pound. That's a 0.87% increase over the last time period. On replacement cows, the trend continues. These prices, these averages keep climbing up on these reports. Average on bred cows, the average high price paid on bred cows was $2,781.25 per pound. Average on the high prices paid on pair cattle was $3,414.29 per pound. We do have an event coming up. It's rapidly approaching. Just remind you all about the LSU AgCenter Hay Day that's being held in Red River Parish near Coushatta. Really got an interesting day planned. Got a lot lined up there. We got some important talks going to be going on, and the highlight today is going to be some equipment demonstrations. We've got all three big manufacturers going to be there. Got Kubota, John Deere, Vermeer, Case IH, McHale will be there. Arcusin will be there. A number of spraying companies will be there. Massey Ferguson will be there. The list goes on and on. We'll have truly nationwide representation almost from these corporations that are going to be there, along with local dealers. We're not excluding local dealers. Local dealers are going to be prominently involved in this, and so we're actually going to demo the equipment, folks. You're going to get a chance to watch the equipment work and talk to the dealers and find out what pieces of equipment what can benefit your operation. That being said, I believe that's all I have, and I'll turn it back over to Brittany.
Thanks, Lee and Vince. I know Tripp he disappeared on us, and he texted me and said they lost internet at his office, so he had to get off kind of abruptly, and he's not able to get back on. But it's after listening to all of your updates. One of the things that I know, I had the meeting that I had last week, and then Vince and I attended another meeting on Wednesday night as well, and just kind of one thing, and it's just relevant to what all of us have been talking about here, is just how important reproductive efficiency is in your cattle operation. And that's what's going to, make sure you have cows that are having a calf every single year. Cull the ones that aren't, especially in the market right now. I'm sure Lee and Vince both agree that that's, one of the most important things in your operation, to make sure that, you're making money, right? So again, thank you all so much. And as Lee mentioned, the heyday, it's not too late to RSVP for that. All you need to do to RSVP is just call the Red River Extension Office. Their number is 318-932-4342 and get RSVP for that. It sounds like it's going to be a great day. Next up for us, we'll be heading to our county agents convention that starts on Sunday. So I'll get to see all these guys and Dr. Edwards over in Marksville for a good conference that we have planned. And thanks to our president, Justin Dufour, who's out in Avoyelles Parish, for getting that together for us. Have a couple of really good livestock stops as well on that tour that we're going to see. So thank y'all for joining us today, and we'll see you next time.